Well, here it is. We're getting towards the goldenrod time. This is all I have in my whole garden because it just doesn't grow here very well. But it's still some, and it's a marker for the seasons. And now the flow is finished, apart from this bit of goldenrod. It's about the only thing that's in flower around here. And we've got everything bone dry. So now it's time to split our colonies and get everything else prepared for the winter because the clock is ticking. So where have I been for the last 2 weeks? Well, what has really happened is our flow has come and gone, and it was short and sharp, but it was good while it lasted, and luckily we had some bees ready to receive that flow. As you know, we had a lot of swarming in the spring that was due to obviously my fault, not enough bee checks, but really everybody found this spring that no matter what colonies you had, no matter how good your swarm prevention methods were, a lot of colonies did go. The spring was so strong because we had the good weather right in February and March that built everything up super strong, and when that flow came along, the bees just thought, well, give them the slightest chance of being overcrowded and they're off, they're just gone. We went into colonies. We should have basically split colonies rather than risking and getting the honey, but I had a good honey crop and it worked well. We're now the 25th of July and suddenly everything is completely different. We're now looking at getting our last nukes made, but I've been out wherever I can splitting nukes, and the biggest problem we've had recently is the heat. The heat has been unbelievable. Obviously it's the same in the UK, Europe. We've had record temperatures, not so much here, but we still had about 36 to 38 degrees C, which is just short of 100. And in further over into the centre of France, the east of France, into the 40s. It's been unbelievable. For us big working bees, you work either for an hour or two in the evening, last thing before the sun goes down, or you work first thing in the morning, and it's just been unbelievable. The second thing is the bees are in robbing mode. So the minute you work in an apiary, the minute you get a hive out and you knock a bit of honey, you get honey on the hive tool, the bees are onto it. They're just absolutely out to rob anything they can. And also that means that anything that is left unattended is empty, is gone. I put a couple of supers out that I had in a workshop that I hadn't taken out after the spring harvest, and it was interesting to see that they were clear within 20 minutes, like an absolute sea of bees. So that's what we're up against. The minute you're out there trying to get some work done, you're sweating like mad, it's pouring off you, and you've got the problem with robber bees. So they all become more aggressive, they all become defensive, and you've got to be so careful with what you do. Keep everything spotless, in and out of an apiary, and do that. So what I've been doing is I've been going into an apiary, taking off the honey supers, making splits, which has gone really well, and I've got a lot of splits. I've had a lot of queens come out that have gone in the last couple of days, and I've had some good results. The mating, preliminary obviously, but they seem to be laying up sheets of brood. Really pleased. People have been asking, how long do I graft for? Well, usually my last graft is in the next 2 weeks. But if the weather continues how it is, we've got a lot of drones that are good, and we haven't taken the honey off yet, which we're going to start next week. If I can carry on with the amount of drones I've got, I'm going to carry on for another 2 or 3 weeks. And then that will be it, because I'm absolutely exhausted from it. It's like you come back from work, doing your bees, and you've got to go back and get the graft sorted out. You've got to go and get a cell builder ready. You've got to stock a cell builder. It's just a continuous extra effort doing the cell raising, and it's a lot of work. But I always say every year, every winter, I get to the winter and I go, you know what? I wish I'd made another 20 nukes last summer, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to make a few more and see how they do. So today I'm going to, while I can, just go through a little split of this AZ Hive because it's absolutely full. You remember I put a swarm in here about 8 weeks ago, just before the start, well, probably no, about 6 weeks ago, before the start of the main flow. I'd have to check the dates, like maybe 8 weeks. And you can see the bottom is the brood nest, the top has got the queen excluder there, and this is absolutely packed full. I just let them fill up in the flow. I didn't go in and take anything out because I wanted it to get really full, so I could, as I was worried I wouldn't have another big swarm to put in this second AZ hive I've got, because I've got two, so I'm going to try and populate the second one. So what I did was I allowed this to build really strong, so I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to put the queen into the new one and then requeen this one, because I've got a lot of good drones here. So I'm going to take this one away tomorrow, this other one that's new, take that away, and that will have the queen in it, and that will go up to the workshop under the overhang. So we've got protection there for the winter, which is where it should be from the start anyway. But in the weather, it's fine at the moment. In the summer, because even though it's a wooden top, it gets no rain. We've had hardly, as you know, hardly any rain. We're all in drought conditions. So I'll show you the front in a second. You'll see how full it is, and then I'll start splitting it up, and hopefully it'll be fairly straightforward. So you can see just how packed full this is. It's absolutely plastered full of bees from the bottom to the top, and it really needs to be split, or the bees would just start to decrease as the season goes on, obviously as the queen reduces her laying. But this is now the same for all my nukes. It's the time to make splits. It's the time to profit from the end of the bees' productivity in terms of our nectar flows. The bees are going to do nothing now apart from get ready for the winter. So we can, as long as we can help them get ready for the winter, and we've got all that in mind, we can make splits now. We've got still time to raise a few more queens, and we can get those queens into the nukes and get good colonies going in plenty of time. We've got frames of bees and brood if we need them. We can give the odd frame here and there. We're still stocking cell builders, but that's just about finished as well. So just before, we've got about another 3, maybe 4 weeks of grafting left. Now we are able to carry on with that a little bit longer here, because looks as though we'll have a continuation of this type of weather where we had a southerly flow for a long time and it's fairly settled, and that's obviously brilliant for mating. We're going to feed our drone colonies, and actually it could work really well, because in the wild, when you've got a drought, natural wild colonies, and there's a lot of them around, will ditch their drones fairly soon, and we can keep our drones going longer by either removing the queen, or we can just make sure they're well fed so the queen doesn't instinctively try and reduce the amount of drones in the colony. So that's one little trick we've got. And the bonus of having that situation is that you control the drones more than ever, because the other drones that are around that are usually flying well are probably going to be killed or chucked up by the workers in the wild colonies. So that means that all the drones you own are going to be the ones that are flying, mating with your queens. And that's what I hope we're going to do. I wasn't quite sure as to how I was going to go about doing this, because this is 10 frames on the top and 10 frames on the bottom. Now I'm going to split it in 2, and I'm going to put new frames back in here in the top and in the bottom, but I'm going to take a lot of the stores from the top and a lot of the brood from the bottom. Basically I'm going to cut it in 2 almost like this, but do it in a way where it's divided up. But on the receiving colony, the configuration I'm going to do, I'm going to put it at the top of the colony. And the reason being is, my knowledge of bees here means that I work on the fact that bees will probably build no more than 10 frames in the time we've got less to the end of the year. In other words, they'll re-establish these 10 frames. But okay, I know I'm going to put the queen in this one, and I'm going to redo this one, but over the winter, we can have a queen excluder in here, in this part. The queen excluder basically goes in this part here, slides in the middle there. So I'm not going to put that in, because if I had the colony on the bottom and then it went cold, the bees would instinctively want to go up right to the top of the colony here where the honey is. And sometimes the last honey is up in that top part where you have your banana of honey. Okay, there's probably a lot more, and yes, I can probably feed them more, but naturally bees will always be, when it's the coldest part of the year, right up in the cluster on top of there. Right up there they'll be. So I'm not going to put this colony here, I'm going to put it there and give them that chance. So I'm going to have no queen excluder, but come next spring, if they have built in the bottom of it, I'm just going to swap these around. Now, the other question I haven't answered is, and you're probably asking, why do I bother with AZ hives? Well, for a number of reasons. Firstly, I was introduced to these by Alicia, and there's a number of reasons why I like them, but the main reason is it's really good for everybody to have different hives to understand how they work, and you get to know a lot about. Even though I've done bees for 10 years now, there's still things I'm learning by having this different type of hive. And you should remain open-minded and remain open to new ideas and looking at things differently. So I've got these two hives for that reason, but the other reason is I'd like to try and produce something from this. And for me, what I like to produce from these hives is cut comb, because what I have here is two distinctive flows, and I don't have any way of making cut comb. I don't have any cut comb frames at the moment. I could do that. I could convert some of my supers to cut comb supers. I just put a super on, but I think this will be a better way because I can actually insert single frames in. I've got the two boxes to use. It'll be a bit of fun to try. So that I'll then, what I was going to say before is I'll make sure the brood nest is then reversed to underneath in the spring, and then the bees will go up into it and then draw out new comb during the flows. And that's how I get my cut comb, because I can put in my frames that are going to be basically of a starter strip and then some wax just to guide the bees where to build. I'm putting 10 frames in the top of just nice new foundation. You'll see that in a minute when I bring the frames in as I divide it up. So it's going to be a bit of a juggling act, but the whole idea is I'm going to find the queen in here, put her in this box, and then this box will stay in place with the majority of its forager bees. And this way, this colony won't have many forager bees straight away, because it's actually obviously still daylight and some of the foraging. But saying that, it's actually later in the evening, and I'm doing it now because it's cooler for the first time. The first time in 6 days it actually is more pleasant in a bee suit. And I'm going to basically transfer most of the bees from here to here and leave the forager bees in this one, if that's the case. There may be some forager bees that go in there, that's fine. But this is in its place, so I can requeen it from its position here. And when it's requeened, I'll then move that to the workshop with this one, and then they'll be together up there so I can work the two next spring. But it's all a bit of fun. It's all something to enjoy doing. And I think it's really important to remain open-minded. And you can diss the flow hive, you can diss omelette, you can diss anything you want. But at the end of the day, you can't really say anything about all these different hives until you've had a chance to experience them, and that's what it's all about. We can all be very critical on the forum. You can always post something on one of these forums, whatever it is you're on, and there can be the way the first person reacts and slants that reply usually has the sort of downward spiral of negativity. Now, there's no need to be negative. We can try all these things, and if we like them and we find a use and they work for us, use them. That's what it's all about. It's all about us trying things and getting the best out of our bees. So let's get on with this and do this split. So I've got my frames, and I put the front feeder box on and the front grill to respect the bee space. So all I'm going to do is put this colony in the top here on this side. The beauty of it is I can actually shake some bees down into here as well. I'm not expecting to build those frames out for the moment, and if I can find a way of closing maybe the top off, I might put the brood that's in the top down the bottom for the winter, but close this off properly so that it's as though they're in the top. What I really don't want to do is make the bees heat a top space when they're not using it. I want them to be in that top space. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So here we go. So I'm going to just undo the doors on this one, and I'm not going to use much smoke. I'm going to try and no gloves, just see how we go. I haven't opened this for a few weeks actually, since the flow started, so it'll be interesting to see how it's all looking. I'm going to take this off first, and they propolize it quite nicely. But nothing major we can't deal with. There we go. The bees are actually pretty nice tonight by the look of it. The great thing is I've got a lot of resources here, so I've got all this drawn comb to use to fill out the other side. So the bees going into this one will quickly be able to fill it out. So I'll divide it up nicely, and fingers crossed we'll have a good result. A lot of bees in this feeder section here. Just going to crack all this propolis. Here we go. Right, we're away. So this is our brood nest. These bees have been absolutely lovely this evening. That's the bottom feeder, you see, that I'm going to put back afterwards. And the bees feed through the gauze, and you top it up from the front there. A really clever design. So I'll just go on the floor there next to that. So I really want to put the queen in this new one, But first I'm going to get this ready by removing some of this honey and putting it into the top section first to give me a bit of time. So I'll get this done first out of the way. Got some nice honey in here that I'm actually quite tempted to rob a bit out, but I'm not going to. But so you filled this out beautifully. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous honey. And that'll be stores now for this new colony. So I'll pop this in here. In slots 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Sorry, and 8, 9 and 10. And give them something to work on. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in slot 2. Because I'm probably going to put a frame of foundation in number 1 and number 10. So you have to bear with me here. I'm a bit cack-handed at handling these things, but I'm just going to do my best. All coming out quite nicely. And some of the comments I had before were, why don't the bees get squashed on the bottom rail? Well, if you look at that, you'll see why. And there's your reason. There's a groove, top and bottom. So the actual surface area touching the bottom is very, very small. Look at that. I'd love to cut that as comb. That's what I want to do next summer. For the moment, it's bee food. So I'll put 2 frames in here. Together like that. Beautiful. And then 2 the other side, and the rest is going to be a foundation. That can go in now. Nice new sheets of foundation here. There'll be a bit of jiggling around. And on the other side. I'm basically going to rebuild the brood nest by splitting it in half, but rebuild it in the configuration the bees would use. And that's what it's all about. You respect the bees. So beautiful comb. I'm not really robbing it, girls. I'm actually just giving it to another colony I'm making. Well, I'm robbing it, but I'm moving the queen away. So that one can go in there. Number 2, number 9, I saw number 8, 8 or 9, whatever you want to call it. And the same with this one. And what I do then is after this, I'll bring the other frames together so there's some honey left in the middle at the top. But what I will do is I will take away this excluder later in the autumn so that when the bees if they need to go up and cluster on this honey, I will let them do that so they can move up with the heat, because it does get cold here, and I imagine that's what they do when they want to give bees room to cluster. I'm actually really impressed because next year I'll be able to cut this out and use this as cut comb, and I'm really liking that idea. Looks delicious. So that's going to give me 4 spaces for the brood nest. I'm hoping I'm going to get a load of bees here because I want to make sure I take a lot of bees with me and the queen if I can find her. So let's see if we can have a look for the queen. I want to find a lot of brood as well. No smoke here. I'm lucky with these bees. They're really nice genetics. This was a big swarm in the spring you saw going into the hive. So what have we got here? We've just got some hatching brood there. I'll put that frame in for now. See if the bees can walk off it, but the queen isn't on that one. The bees will probably walk off that, and that will give me some extra bees in there, so I'll shake them off or brush them off after. Let's go through this. We can find a better couple of frames. I really want to take the queen with me, and I really want to take a nice little brood with me. This frame's better. This is beautiful. This is the kind of thing I want. That's a much better frame. We have eggs, so I know there's a queen in here somewhere. Well, there was at the time the egg was laid. So that's good. That frame can go there. I may take one of the foundation out of there and actually just put an extra frame of brood in, because I really want to get plenty of bees. So I'm going to break this open because I don't want the queen to run from every time I move one frame. I don't want her to run across, but she probably will anyway if she's going to. Another nice frame of brood. Got a lot of pollen in that frame as well, which is exactly what I'd expect this time of year. There's our queen. Beautiful. Don't know if you can see her there with the red dot running around, and she looks enormous. So we have found her. Now she's disappeared. She's on the other side now, so it's good. Lovely queen, nice healthy brood, everything is good. So this one can go in with the queen on. Just want to make sure I know where the queen is. I don't want to squash her as I put her in, but not that I would squash her much, but much isn't enough. But squashing her at all or damaging her is a disaster in this scenario. So I don't want to do that. I want this colony to proliferate. I want it to pick up straight away and just get on. Where's she gone? There she is. She's in the groove between the frame and the wax. So I'm going to go for that and hopefully she'll be there. I know she's in there, so that's good. There she is on the edge again. You've got to be so careful. There she is again, look. I'm going to let her go back in and then I'll slide the frame in. There she goes. Isn't she beautiful? We saw her going up the gangplank when we put her in before in the summer. So she's in, she can go in now. I know she's safe. In you go, girl. Really gentle with this. That's got a nice lot of eggs and larvae, and that'll be a long time before that's all finished. So let's put this one as well, and then we're done. So what a fantastic result. There we are, they're all in. Great. So I know that because there's a queen in there, she'll just carry on laying straight away. So if I feed them and if they need pollen sub, but there's pollen in those frames, if they need pollen sub I can give it to them, but we have got maize coming into flower and we have got an autumn ivy fly which is usually pretty good no matter what. So I'm pretty sure they'll refill this whole lot, refill those 2 new frames in the back, there's something for them to do, and if they wanted to, they'll go into the bottom as well. But I'm leaving off the excluder for the moment and I'll reinstall that next spring. So what I've done now in the receiver colony, I've now put all the bee space protectors in, and I'll get this to feed when I get to the other side later tomorrow morning. And that door's back on, close it up, we're done. On the other side, I've rearranged all the frames. The brood nest is now the 4 middle frames at the top, or 5 middle frames. 1 frame down the bottom didn't have any brood in, so that's gone down the bottom with another one next to it. They are now going to have to make a new queen, but the brood nest is up the top with all the resources I have left. There's a couple of frames of honey there. If they do go down and they want to, they can. This is absolutely free for the bees to do what they want, respecting everything they need, and everything's back into place. So I think it's been a bit of fun, and I learned a lot just by doing this. Hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you again soon. Bye for now.